our faces. That'll be great.
No, actually, you should have my face on your shirt, and I can have your face on my shirt.
Well, I thought to have our faces, but you know the jagged line that they're apart? East Coast, West
Or,
Coast. Are we
or
live?
one, we are live. One can have a circle around it.
Guess who this is? Who is this person?
Who is it? Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Hey,
Okay.
everyone, welcome. Glad you're here today. It is 7 o'clock here in southwestern Ontario. It is a balmy 3 degrees and cloudy here in Sarnia. It's been a wet weekend to be sure. Oh, you've got your buble.
Watermelon.
Nice. Is it cold?
It is nice and chilly.
Yeah, I don't mind flavored things like that, but they have to be cold when they're fruity. Just my thing.
I'm glad to know.
Yeah, well, in case you're
Next
wondering,
Christmas. Next
write it
Christmas.
down. Yeah, exactly. So anybody who's just joining us, my name's Michelle. I'm thrilled to be here with you today. This is my sidekick over here. He's on this side on my screen, but he might be over there on yours. Yeah, exactly. So this is Tom. Old brother Tom is what we like to call him. Tom, how is your weather in beautiful British Columbia?
It's been so for those joining us or those will watch later, Michelle's East Coast, I'm West Coast. Well, she's Ontario, so it's kind of is it considered East Coast?
Yeah,
For me, yeah. Okay.
from you for sure.
Yeah.
Everybody is.
So we've had like days between 17 and 20 degrees. It rained all day today, but we probably needed it. But I was just telling Michelle, it's been like for most of us, we work or take care of family or whatever we do during the week. So we're busy. That's just our most of our lives here. And then we get to the weekend, and then outside of responsibilities and resting or whatever that means, and all these things, is trying to fit time in, right? But it's yeah, it's been a decent week. I told Michelle I was at a national conference in Vancouver, where I live, about an hour away, for the first half of the week, and so that's long days. So this weekend I got to chill.
Nice.
So I'm feeling pretty chill.
Good, good. It's a great place to be,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, it's a fabulous place to be. Good. Well, I've had a good week as well. Oh, I have something to share with you today.
Okay.
So, lovely Miss Gemma was over, and I got to unblur my background. I need some tape. She made me a self-portrait of me. Is it a self-portrait if she makes it of me? So we got serious this time. We got the tape and the scissors out. I know you haven't seen me like up close and personal. So here I am. Oh, had to tape it all together. And stunning. You can't tell, but I have this lovely Nana necklace I got from all the grandchildren, well, a bunch of the grandchildren that were born at that time. And she drew it on. It's right
Love
here.
it.
She says, "Oh, Nana, I drew it." So, in case you're wondering, this is the real one. This is the paper one.
So that's
Exciting.
like the Michelle Lisa.
Yeah. Oh, I'd have to be.
You gotta frame it. I
No,
could
I'm
have said
just gonna go back there. Look at
I
all
could
the
have said
artwork I have.
I could have said Picasso. I want a Picasso of me like rigid noses, and you can't even tell if it's a face or if it's a mountain. And
So it looked like you do
I
now.
like Picasso, right? But
Yeah,
yeah, the
awesome.
thing I was going to say too before we get going is,
What were you gonna
and
say?
Michelle and I tried to. I think last week we talked a little bit about, just a general sense of politics, but we both have said is we've got a big election coming up in 3 weeks.
Yeah,
And so Michelle's a great resource if you want to reach out to her. I'm kind of, but you know what? Be informed. Don't look at mainline news per se. Find a good, trusted news source, and just really, this for whatever reasons for me, this election is pretty, I think, pretty important, and I think we need to be aware because there's just so much fake news, right? So we just want to be aware of what we're doing because whatever decisions are made for the country is going to affect us for a while, right? So there's my little plug. Not pushing any way one way or the other way, but find out. Me and my son have talked about he's voting for the first time this year, so that'll be great.
Are you
That's
done?
it. That's my plug.
Right.
It just seemed the
Okay.
boy was hearing me.
Hear you talk about him?
Yeah, he'll be online playing games with his friend or doing whatever with his headphones on, the covered ones.
Yep.
And if I say something, he'll hear it.
It's
His
amazing.
spidey senses is hearing.
It's so funny how they hear certain things.
Oh,
Right?
now I can hear his chair squeak. By the way.
Yeah,
See? You
see?
see him? I can hear you.
Mm,
I've got tape over my ears and my ears are
right.
muffled.
Well, now what are we going to talk about? We're going to talk
That's
about him
right.
for 45 minutes.
That's
Good
right.
grief.
So last week, I was thinking about, not that we have to do it all the time. So last week, why don't you give us a couple sentence recap from taking, what you took away from last week and what we talked about? You want me to look what we talked about? It's been a
Yeah, we
week.
talked about stinking thinking.
No, that
What did
wasn't
we talk
last
about?
week.
Limiting
We
beliefs.
well, let me look. Let me look at my book.
Limiting beliefs, Tom.
Limiting beliefs. Pretty
That's
much
what
the
we
same thing,
talked
right?
about. That's what we talked about.
Yeah.
And so I think my biggest takeaway from that is, and it quite often different techniques we talk about go back to the same thing. Am I lying to myself? Right? Am I like, is it true? Because that's, and it still ties in with stinking thinking, because we automatically go to the worst scenario or the most negative, or it's by default. Quite often we will speak to I can't instead of heck yeah, I can. Right. So yeah, that was my biggest takeaway, I think, is that having those hard conversations with yourself of, because I mean, the reality is we can't do everything. I cannot go out and arrest somebody today. I'm not a police officer. I can't go do brain surgery, right? So there's certain times where you're going to think, yeah, okay, that's accurate. I cannot do that. But the majority of the time, heck yeah, you can. But you have, you just by default, you go to the negative, the can't, it's easier to do nothing. We've talked about that before,
Yeah.
right? It's always the easiest option.
And I think, yeah, me too. I think when I look back at, we may be talking about limiting beliefs, say last week, and then we'll talk about it, or I'll think about it, say in a year from now or 2 years. And I always find it shift a little bit because more experience, sometimes more information, less fear. But because I think of when, like, limiting beliefs, things that I would have maybe believed, say 40 years ago or 30 or 20 or 10 or whatever, right?
Yeah,
I think we didn't say this, but one of the things I thought about limiting beliefs, I thought people, and I'm thinking of some guys I know actually. If they watch this, they'll never figure who they are, but that's okay. But they they have built this wall of fear around their thinking, and even if their thinking is wrong, wrong at like where you would have right or wrong, like 2 + 2 is 17 or something, right?
that's where we are now.
They will never, because limiting understand,
Mhm.
they will never acknowledge truth. They will never acknowledge it. And so part of that, so to me, I was thinking after we did our show, I was going, that's so limiting. Like and you and I've mentioned this a few times over the last year. So we're not, you're not going to sell us stuff we don't need, like information, whatever. We're smart, right? But
Yeah,
I don't want to be, I want to, for me, I want to be careful that if somebody says something that maybe I've had a thought or opinion on, but I want to be open, then I'll investigate. Or Michelle and I were just talking. She sent me some videos of some YouTube people to check out just because of kind of what we're doing with our page, right? To me, I don't want to be limited by that. I want to be open to that because I think I become um, more rounded in my thinking for sure, right? So,
absolutely.
anyways, so that's what
That's
I was thinking. Happy Sunday. Somebody is portioning our
it's a
friend
land.
E.
It's a
Can you
land.
see? Can you see her on there?
Yeah, I
Perfect.
replied. Yeah,
Good. Perfect.
yeah. She's making us some spaghetti.
And then she's gonna skip the dishes and send it out to me out west.
And she's not near me either. So she's
Yeah.
gonna, yep, she's gonna look after that. Good job, Alan.
Yeah. So this week, so Michelle and I have our like we have some things that we thought went really well last year, so we're going to redo them, and then we're kind of flexible, so we're not pigeonholed. But we thought we'd talk about forgiveness, releasing yourself. And so with that, Michelle, why don't you get us rolling with this topic?
Perfect. Okay. So yeah, forgiveness is such a, oh, it's such an interesting thing. We, like Tom said, we have covered it before. I think, it's one of those things we're always working on. And as life changes, right, and we get older and we're dealing with different things, oh, Lan wants your address. She's going to hook you up. So oh, it's so interesting. I heard a great uh, analogy not too long ago, and it was about that we're layers of an onion, and it's so true.
What's that?
But what?
I lost your voice for a minute.
Oh, about being layers of an onion?
There you go. Onion. Okay, now I got it.
Onion, yeah. And we're pulling it back all the time, right? And as we're
Right.
even getting older in our life, what happens is different things, if regarding whether it's forgiveness of others or forgiveness of self, sometimes things have to sort of stew a bit and you don't really think about it. And then it's not until an aha moment later that makes you realize that maybe you've been carrying it. Maybe it's created a limiting belief in you, right? There's so many different things. So I think compassion is a big part of forgiveness, whether it's self compassion and self forgiveness, or it's compassion to somebody else. We talk about this all the time as far as not judging other people. Do you see a post I put on Facebook last week? And it was something along the line of, instead of judging, just be curious, right? Of like what that person's going through, or, whatever that is. And a big thing when you think about forgiveness, and it's just a great example to use, is our parents, right? We've talked about that in great depth about parents and what their lives were like, where they learned their skills from, what skills maybe they didn't have. So when you think about, like, say, a child that was raised with the belt, just saying, right? Totally illegal today, but once upon a time when we were all growing up, wooden spoon, slipper, belt, all that stuff. Well, we can go a couple different directions. We can be angry and hold on to, all that bitterness and all those negative emotions because we're refusing to forgive them. Doesn't matter if you verbally say it or not, but just to have that forgiveness in your heart. But it starts with compassion and understanding. Like when
Yeah.
I think of my mom chasing me around with a slipper or a wooden spoon, my brother's got the belt. In case this is very confusing, Tom and I were not raised together. So when I think of that, and I never asked, and my parents are both deceased now, but it makes you wonder, well, was their upbringing like? Especially like in Britain. My mom would have been 10 in 1944. What was that like? Do you know what I mean? Like when you think about that, but if you're not, or even somebody like alcoholism and addiction, that sort of thing, you look at all these different things and you really have to extend the olive branch and look at what their environment was like. Where did they learn those bad habits or lack of skills or understanding? What do all those things look like? And then from there, you can move forward. See you, buddy.
Okay, bye. Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think so. So for me, so our channel is called Mental Wellness for Life. So there's lots of ways to approach this. We want us all to be well. And one thing I was going to say, and pretty sure most people have heard this, is unforgiveness is poison. So, and you're not poisoning somebody else, you're poisoning yourself, because sometimes, say you have a parent who didn't do ABC or whatever these things happened, and you're an adult now and have your family, they may not know or care about, not that they don't care, but they may not be aware, is a better way of saying, of what's going on, right? So here, forgiveness, I'm going to read an AI overview because I love AI now. But it says forgiveness in a general sense is a conscious and deliberate decision to release feelings of resentment, anger, or the desire for revenge towards somebody who has wronged you or yourself, regardless of whether they deserve it or you deserve it. So this muscle or this thing about forgiveness, I believe, is a core essential value on moving forward. And it's a hard one for some people. So we would not want to minimize for somebody like Michele said. We were raised just different in a different way. Different, our mother went through different experiences. We have 7 siblings, and I'm the oldest, and you're the second youngest.
We are 7 siblings.
What
You're
did
the,
I say?
you said we have 7 siblings.
Well, total, yeah. I'm talking West Coast language. She's East Coast, A.
Yeah.
But yeah, so part of it is perception, perspective. We talk about quite often is we have feelings, right? Or we minimize our feelings. So if you've done something really really bad, and you're like when you're younger or not, and you however you numbed it, whatever you did, but you didn't have the information, and then you carry that. I believe this, Michele. I believe not only will you judge yourself and self punish yourself mentally, emotionally, physically, whatever, you'll actually do it to others, right? So what'll happen is, or you'll do a reversal. So what'll happen is, if like Michele and I talk about the sense of my word, you can help me, but sense of abandoned, like feeling abandoned, these types of things, right? And so for me, with my biological father, who I was raised when I was younger, but then left, um, I went through most of my life feeling devalued because if he believed it or not, by the way, but he would say I wasn't his. And so we realize the power of words, so other words towards us, but you think about the way we don't even verbalize our thoughts that are real negative. Like Michele said at the beginning, oh, I can't do anything. I suck, blah, blah, blah. I'm such an idiot. So this, shifting that, and it takes time. It won't happen. It's not a magic pill, right, Michele? It
Yeah.
takes a little bit of time, right?
Process.
So part of it is in this whole idea. So I wrote down, Michele, where to start. So if I'm coming to you, I said, oh, Michele, I'm having a hard time. How would you help me?
It
I'm putting
depends.
you on the spot. Sorry.
Yeah. What are you doing? Um,
Without telling her, by the way.
yeah, it's great. What's the hard time with? Because my answer would
So,
vary.
so say I have a hard time with self-doubt. I feel like everything I've done fails.
So in that scenario, if I was your friend and I'm not,
But you charged me 250. No.
so no, but what I would do is I would have you self-reflect how far you've came, all the things, everything's hard all through our life, right? So I would definitely have you reflect on other hard things that you've accomplished. I see Alan puts in the chat. I used to have lots of conversations about feelings with my 2.5-year-olds at work. If you need to cry and scream, go for it. Punch a pillow, etc. Absolutely, to let all that out. I think, as we are our own research and development departments, we have the data. This is the thing. Like at your age, Tom, what, early 40s, then you've got all these years, 20 years of adulting, just for a number, where you've accomplished so much. So, and I think it's, there's some use to like some value in questioning yourself because it makes us strive for more. It gives us the initiative and the motivation and the excitement, but you have to get to that. So I think, yeah, using yourself as your best example. At the end of the day, it's only you versus you. And then that will help get you have to boost your confidence, right? And let whatever, like, I don't know if that's necessarily like a forgiveness thing, but yeah, that's what I would do if you were struggling. Definitely.
And I think, um, so I think I understand what you're saying, and I think it's super important. And here's, famous hashtag things we're going to sell pillows. You know what you know, and you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
So your advice or my advice to somebody would be based on my 40 years experience and your 47 years. No,
I'll take it. It's fine.
um, but and so but here's something important, because if you have, so here's the thing, right? If you have felt your whole life, like Michelle and I can have shared and can share stories about how we've had to navigate from maybe the way we thought of ourselves when we were younger and through difficult life challenges, relational challenges, in us being in two different parts of the world and not knowing each other, right? So we somehow, all of us, come to a place where we realize with ourselves or with others, we have to move forward, and we can't. And usually when people come to me, and let me correct me if I'm not saying this right with you, with Michelle and some things she does, but if people come to us for support or help, they've reached a point where they acknowledge and they need help, right? And that's almost the first step. And so for me, I love Michelle asked me a question, because part of it's like, what are you going through? And the whole idea of stinking thinking, the whole idea of feeling like Michelle is like a grand master, like a black belt. I don't know if there's higher in in
Oh,
in pulling people away. She's a black pom pom or whatever, or
yeah.
purple. But
Pom-poms.
Michelle, it's just in her nature is to pull people off the edge,
Thank
right?
you. Yeah.
And so I'm a bit older. I'm not pessimistic in it. I'm not in a, I try not to be in a negative way. I'll use the word realistic, but I'm learning more and more as I get older, is that um, I have to be careful for myself, because I'll project that on people I love, my kids, my grandkids, or family, right? But I want to, so Michelle and I learn from each other lots, right? So this whole idea of forgiveness, I believe it has to start with you. As a child, in using our situation, as the eldest of seven combined children of one family.
Of one
um,
mother, one mother.
um, yeah, sure, yeah, well, no, one mother, one mother. um, I, for majority of my teenage life, and probably younger, but I wouldn't have, um, I felt responsible for what happened to us. And not, this is back in the 60s, late 60s, 70s, right? I wouldn't have been able to know how to process. So the way most people process even to today is they numb themselves. And it might not be drugs or alcohol. It could be stuff. It could be stuff or workaholic, like these things, right? So I think at some point we come out and we go, I want to be free of this. I don't want this room in my brain and in my heart. I need to release it. So I have a couple of things that we can wrestle through, Michelle. I've got there's 12 steps. I didn't write them all down, right? That you could give me some feedback in that. But here's one of the things that says forgiveness is a choice, but forgiveness requires empathy, compassion, kindness, and understanding, right? And I do you think it's harder to forgive ourselves? And well, I guess it depends on the situation. Forgive ourselves compared to somebody else?
Um, I
It probably
think
depends,
so.
right?
Yeah, I think so. I think and of course, depending on the scenario, but forgiving yourself, like you got to live with yourself 24 hours a day. It's ongoing. Like when you forgive somebody else, even if you half forgive them, you can sort of let it go and maybe not notice or think of anything until something brings that back up. But with yourself, every waking hour you might think of it, or anytime like you wake up in the middle of the night and or you see something or whatever. And if I can just deviate back a little bit, when you think about you, I mean, that is a very real thing. carrying the, dysfunction around you. Because in our, when we were growing up, and I don't know, because I wasn't, like, I don't remember anything from being there. But if you were told traditional things like, you're the man of the house now, you know what I mean? Those sort of
Yeah.
things, they would have played into it. But I mean, I hope you're proud of yourself, how far you've come, because there's a very good chance if you would have got locked into that, then it's like being frozen in time,
Yeah.
right? So it's like you're frozen in time. You're not living anymore. You're existing, just one bottle to the next, or like you said, maybe being a shopaholic, maybe being a hoarder, maybe being a workaholic, right? Maybe being a comedian who's always just pushing it down, pushing it down, pushing it
Right.
down, right? So I hope, just saying, sort of getting a little bit more serious in the moment, but I hope you're proud of how far you've come, because that's
Yeah.
pretty amazing. You had a lot of obstacles and you survived. So where's my pom poms? Well
Yeah.
done. Kudos to Tom, the survivor. Absolutely.
And I think with that, so see, we just had a clinical trial here. Michelle cannot help herself.
No, you can't.
Give Michelle, and Michelle will
Which
find
one?
a
Is it me
way to
or me?
encourage you. The twins, Michelle, the twins,
Me and
and
me.
she will find a way because it's in her DNA. So here's the thing. First of all, right? You've got to believe. First of all, if you want to spend the rest of your life in a mental or emotional prison
Oh,
cell, then do it, right? And it's um like me and Michelle, like I probably share a little bit more. I'm not trying to use names. I want to be respectful, but like there's a young man I know that used to be part of my family. Did I say that in disguise? And this young man isn't part of our family anymore. And I'm sad for him because
yeah, exactly.
he and I've tried and you know lost money and I feel bad and he's not part of the family anymore. But it's this thing about and like I said, I think Michelle, until still you have this shift and realize that you're important, that you're valuable, you're not tied to, first of all, you're not tied to your past and you're not tied to your past mistakes, right? Even if somebody else doesn't forgive you, right? We're actually talking about you, right? So you can go to somebody and say, listen, I am so sorry. I have no excuse. I don't know why I did A, B, or C, right? Um, and they may need time to process it. I know somebody from years ago, Michelle, that under the influence ran over somebody's teenage, son. This is like 30, 40 years ago. I don't know how you deal with that, but you take responsibility, you deal with whatever. I think this person it was actually in Toronto, went to jail. And so but that's not to do with forgiving yourself. Sometimes there's consequences for our actions or our thoughts, right? So, but here's one of the steps was I thought was interesting. Focus on your when we're talking about ourselves, forgiving ourselves, right? Focus on your emotions and we need to process the way we feel because how we feel, I was using an example with me, feeling like I didn't protect, kept our family together, whatever, which was not my responsibility, right?
You were
Um,
8 or 9.
I was an adult by then. What are you talking about? No,
You're probably smoking, but still you're a
yeah,
child.
no, yeah, but in it, see, depending, and I do believe there is some truth in older child, middle child, younger child, and all these things. Not to paint us like if you want to, it's like reading a horoscope. If you want to believe the general, whatever you can, but the thing is, at some point, if we don't process the feeling, if my daughter who watches this and whatever, she'll love me no matter what. And she's moving back. And I'm
Yay.
going to see her in 2 weeks. But she deals with social anxiety. And the thing about anxiety, talk about working through forgiveness, but the thing with anxiety is you're actually becoming overwhelmed by things that haven't really happened. Or if I go outside, you know, um, I'll run into so and so, or people will look at me and judge. Like, could be a combination of things, right? And so this whole, I think even that could be for somebody step 2 or 3 or 4. But the beginning is to look in the mirror. And I tell my daughter to do this. Michelle has taught me this. I said, M, sorry, now everybody knows her name. Darn, I only have one daughter.
It's
Um,
okay. You talk about her every week. It's fine.
no, it's every third week. But anyways, I tell her, like Michelle has said this a lot. She says, you need to put a post-it note or whatever. You need to remind yourself that you're awesome, that you're worth it, that we're diamonds, like whatever language you want to use, right? And so, however you need to deal with this, I was reading something about this emotional fatigue, Michelle, because
Yeah.
that being stuck in unforgiveness is serious, like dragging a dead horse with you. That's how I feel. And at some point you'll crash, right? So what are your thoughts about dealing with emotions and feelings and stuff?
Absolutely. I think that's where it all starts. And that's where you need to just, work through it, like whatever that brings to you. And I think really look at it honest and truly. Like if it's for yourself, I mean, sometimes let's think that, maybe even responsibility in a broken relationship. One person does not break a relationship. I firmly believe that. There's two, not saying both people are equally guilty
That's
or
right.
whatever, but there's like happy people don't cheat. I believe that there's something going on, right? So I think, if you're looking back, like say 10 years at something you did, whether it's in your work or relationship or parents or, things like that, you have to have that compassion. You have to break it down and figure out like why did I do that? What was I thinking in that moment, right? What was I like? Was I responding was I being emotional? Was in a hot state? Was I in a cold state emotionally? Because in a hot state, it never ends well. And then I think one of the things that's hard for people, but it must be learned, is sometimes you have to accept that you did your best in your environment. This is where I was, this is what was around me. And, when you were saying about somebody you knew that they ran over their child or whatever it was, I also know somebody that ran over their very small child that was playing in the driveway. The child survived, but and it was like the sixth child or something like that. So instantly the favorite. But that, they had to work through, even though it was a complete accident, nobody was charged, I'm sure it was avoidable. Imagine all your life looking at that child who's like grown into an adult and everything, looking at them thinking, oh my goodness, had the tires not been going a certain way, you know what I mean? Like that could have really ruined that dad,
Yeah.
or he would have dealt with it. And I think, yeah, it's such a big thing. So, if it's sometimes as a parent, you carry that maybe you're not be able to financially, especially these days. So many parents carry guilt, right? Because they're feeding their kids a lot of craft dinner or not able to do the extra things or so stressed out that they're not in the mental space to think, hey, let's do Sunday movie night or whatever it is. So I think that's a big thing too. And again, it's at your own time, it's in peace and quiet in a cold state, and then taking the lesson, every single thing, and this is just my belief, every single thing that's going on through your life, you're learning a lesson, even
Yeah.
if the lesson is experience, right? Sometimes it's hindsight. You don't look back, like me being, being accountable for my part in broken relationships. I wasn't doing that 2 weeks after we broke up. Just saying. That's taken time of me to look back and to say, you know what this person did wasn't right or fair. But at the same time, you know, maybe I didn't handle it very well. Maybe I was immature. maybe, and I can take the maybe out there. Yeah, I was, but at the same time, if I can, really get in that cold state and be honest and true, how old was I? What was my scenario? Where did I live? What kind of support did I have? Da 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 da. Da. You know what I mean? And it's
Yep.
not. There's a big difference between a reason and an excuse. So you're
Yeah.
not looking for excuses in those moments. You're really looking for reasons, owning it. But if you don't learn the lesson, you're destined to repeat it. So you've got to learn the lesson so that, you're not going to repeat that. Or if it's a forgiveness scenario, you're not going to leave yourself open for that again. Right? Like, what do they say? If you shame on me the first, shame on you the first time, shame on me the second time, because I let it happen.
Yeah.
Right? And I think all that is also part of maturing. I think as we get older, something shifts hormonally, and then we tend to have a different mindset with a lot of this.
Well, I think I was looking at Elon's comment about these 2.5-year-old kids, right?
Yeah,
We either can stuff it and deny it,
it'll
and we
come
think
back.
that, doesn't give it any power. So surprise. Or depending on personality type, we could be like a room full of 22 and a half, 2.5-year-olds. So
Yeah,
depending on personality, I do think on a general sense, but the way men process feelings and emotion compared to women are different, right? So I think I like Michelle's example of marriage. I'm going to use having an affair, right? Because of some of the people I work with, right?
yeah,
So having an affair, um, it's easy. Like the person who had the affair is responsible for the affair. They
absolutely.
they can't throw that. Well, Bob did this,
That's
Sally
it.
did this. You may have a fractured, a broken, a dysfunctional marriage, and usually not sidebar, not trusting, and there sometimes you feel like I can't trust the other person. Could be a lot of different reasons, right? The
That's
man
right.
could be very controlling, manipulative. I'm not going to be vulnerable. I'm not going to tell him how I feel. Blah blah on either side, right? But you take ownership. So this we're walking towards forgiveness, right? You don't play the blame game. You don't shift responsibility. We take responsibility for who we are, like Michelle said. And there's nothing wrong with, like I said, if you're somebody who's been in a relationship with an affair, if you're the person who had the affair, that's on you. And you in yourself, you may go, well, I didn't feel. You may have a bunch of reasons you feel. I'm being nice, like say excuses, which sounds harder. You may validate it, but at the end of the day, you had made a decision, and I don't care if there's alcohol involved, whatever. You made a decision,
Right.
and here's the key: once you recognize that, you don't have, like, you can't change the act, but you don't have to live in that prison. You can own it, whatever you need to do with the other person, whatever, right? Here's one of the things that I thought was really powerful, and it reminded me of Michelle. So this is what I'm talking about: forgiveness for ourselves, right? Releasing yourself, releasing the tiger, the eye of the tiger. No, releasing
Okay.
yourself. Put the music on, put the song on. No.
I'll sing it.
There you go. But here's something that one of the things I've learned to do over the last few years is a thing called scream therapy. There's a lot of different types of therapy, right? I love scream therapy. I tell people to try it even if they don't need it. It's like punching a bag. It's a lot of stuff, right? I think it's fun. But here's the thing: this psychologist I read, Michelle, he said you need to acknowledge out loud that you forgive yourself.
Right.
And even to the point that you need to look at yourself in a mirror and you need to tell yourself 10 times that I forgive you. I forgive you.
Who says to
And
do that?
it's a psychologist that
Oh,
one of
okay.
the courses I took. And I love that because it's probably the hardest thing. It's
Yeah.
like if you messed up with somebody, if you were younger and a kid or older, like we kind of don't want to look them in the eye, right? We're embarrassed, shame, right? And here's the thing, going into the next part, this is kind of where you've shared a few times before. Uh, Like, allow yourself to learn. Don't be trapped.
Yeah.
Don't if you acknowledge I'm not going to use the word that starts with a C when you eat extra. The word we say we don't use anymore. CHEA. I'll leave the last letter off. I'm teasing you.
Okay.
But if you have a hard time and you want to have a bag of chips, have a bag of chips.
Oh, go for it. I
Like
got 2 bags right
don't
there.
yeah. Michelle's got two bags underneath the table there. But
Probably salt and
but
vinegar.
we can allow yourself to learn is that like for me, I'm trying to be healthier physically. I feel mentally pretty good. I feel physically really good in some
Your
areas. In
hair
other
looks
areas,
great.
Michelle, some areas my leg is like my parts of my body, then my nervous system is going, right? I can need a little walker and a little button or something, right? But anyways, I feel healthier now than I probably felt in the last 20 years. But you know one of the
Awesome.
reasons I think, Michelle? I think as I'm getting older and I look back and I see transitional health, especially mentally and emotionally, when I
Right.
see things that felt like stuck in quicksand were really it was really like a puddle. Like back then, it felt like quicksand. So I'm not taking away how I felt, right? But I
Right.
think about allow yourself to learn. So give some ideas. What you already said a few, but allow yourself to learn. What would you tell me or somebody about how do we learn? How do we learn from not forgiving ourselves?
How do we learn from not forgiving her? Well, it's harder, right?
So if I want to, yeah, yeah, I know. I'm sorry, everybody. Michelle has no idea what
Are
I'm
you
talking about. So I
drinking
didn't, I didn't, I didn't give her any
Bailey's in your
questions.
coffee? What are we doing today? Oh my goodness. So I think I, I your imagination can really take away from the truth,
100%, 100%.
right? It really can. So I think yeah, what you have me so screwed up today. What's happening? My urine sample is just going right to my head. What's your question?
Were you drinking HPO? No. So
Well,
if you're
it's Sunday.
if you were because you and me do this just it's natural. Like
Yeah,
so, we're life
right.
learners. We life like we said I said at the beginning. If you're going to vote, get some information. Don't rely on what you thought before because there's so much miscommunication, right? So you and me would talk to if we were telling somebody or ourselves, we already know that we're going to allow ourselves to learn. But now if we were to try to help somebody, how would you word or express to help to remind them and to learn, not to be caught stuck?
So, I think like it goes down to, and again, in the cold, you can't do anything when you're emotional. You're a bag of milk when you're emotional. So you have to be in the right calm state of mind. No anything, drugs, alcohol, whatever. Nice and calm. You have to break it down. You
Yeah,
have to break it right down. And it really could come down to a pros and cons chart. Do you remember doing that in school? You must have done that in school, the pros and cons. I mean, it's a great tool, very basic for making any decision. So just to get a piece of paper, do pros and cons, and then your pro. So your con could be he cheated, full stop, right? So that could be your con.
bastard.
Right? Yeah, exactly. There was other words, but I wasn't going to say them. But then the pro, so that's probably a terrible example because cheating is such a big thing. But at the same time, yeah, that's a terrible example actually. But even still, so like you've learned a lot. So you've learned you can't trust that person. You've learned that they wander easily. You've learned that maybe you should question some of the things that they've told you before. You've learned like let's say, so that's like such a serious one. Let's say it's somebody at work that stabbed you in the back for a promotion. That's a little bit of a not so emotional one, right? So you've learned the skill of how to identify, you've learned the emotions that go with it, you've learned like even, and it's so these blanket statements that we make. So you can look at, I can look at my past two relationships as failures, or I can look at my past too and get stuck there with that frozen in time and then set the bar super high so nobody's ever going to reach it, and then I'm going to just hit everybody over the head with baggage every time I meet them. It's not going to be a
Yeah.
good time for anyone, and I'm going to die alone, which has its benefits. I'm not
And
saying
what'll happen, Michelle? What'll
hmm,
happen if we don't work through that ourselves now?
yeah,
You could be, let's say, in a relationship. I think of my daughter again, right? So you're in a relationship and you moved on, you got rid of toxic, blah, 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 right? Then all of a sudden, you're in another relationship, person could be really decent person. They will say or do something that will be a ghost trigger from the past, and it
yeah,
will mess
absolutely.
up. So if you don't, like what Michelle's saying, so if you don't allow yourself to learn through it, and with what you're saying, Michelle, one of the couple jot notes I put, journaling your thoughts and emotion.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely.
some people don't like journaling, and part of it's too vulnerable. Get a safe box with 10 covenant, whatever. When you learn to be able to express that, it's like scream therapy. It's like anything. It's important, right?
You don't
One
have
of
to
the
keep
things.
it.
What's that?
You don't have to keep it though.
Burn it. Yeah. There's
Yeah,
something
burn
about
it, delete it, type it out, delete
yeah.
it.
There's something about doing that or saying like I forgive myself, I'm worth it. This is one of Michelle's. I put this here because you say this in your own words. Um, quiet your inner critic.
Yeah, exactly.
Take control and say, you know what? I'm not believing you anymore.
Well, and you know what? I think another good question to ask yourself is, what did you expect out of this life? Like, I think one of the things, and everybody's different. Bye, Alan. We love you. We'll
Bye.
see you next week. One of
Yeah.
the things that I think, like with me, that makes it easier, and everybody's different, is I believe, and I know I've said this before, I believe that I'm here to learn lessons, like to help, to be good, to help, to lift people up, all that. But that's for other people. I mean, I win from that. I feel good when I help other people. Don't get me wrong. I walk into some of my wellness meetings and I feel like a bag of crap. And I leave my 60 people and I'm walking on sunshine. I could sing it. I'm like, so there, it's their energy, my energy. We feel good. We celebrated. So, but I think because that's my, like, I expect challenges because I believe I'm here to learn. And it's just that and to procreate, I think, and that's just my own personal belief. So I expect challenges. So I think I see it a little bit differently. Like I didn't expect to just have one job. I did expect to have one relationship, but that's okay. But you know, you work through that, right? There's my expectation because I came from a nuclear family with two parents. And then I had to shift and figure it out along the way. Forgive myself. I didn't fail, right? I was learning lessons. So I think that's part of it as well. Like, did you come into this world and live all these years expecting it was just going to be easy? Like, and I know some people do. So don't, but I'm just saying, like, with me, I have an expectation, and it doesn't mean I don't get frustrated
Yeah.
and you know, I had some moments today. Or my cars broke down. We ordered a part. It was very expensive. We had to really work around aligning people to fix the car for me. Wrong part. I was like, wow, I think I'm gonna vomit now. But I can't do anything till tomorrow. So, you know, it is what it is. So, even though I expect challenges and forks in the road and all that other sort of stuff, there's things that are going to take me by surprise.
Yeah.
And I just have to suck it up, buttercup. And one day it's going to be a memory and we're all going to laugh.
And see, Michelle, from my opinion, you can correct me if I'm way off base. When we've learned to navigate ourselves through unmet expectations, like so I have no knowledge. Like I know Michelle's been married for, but no. So you go into a relationship, and it could be your first boyfriend in high school, it could be whatever, right? First girlfriend, whatever, right? But you go into a relationship, and everything feels, the joke, like the honeymoon, right? And then all of a sudden, the quirks, the bad ones, and the ones that are not so bad, or become part of the relationship. Oh, well, when he said that, I thought like he really hurt me. Oh, I didn't mean to hurt you. So this learning on the go, this
Yeah.
fluid learning, we don't when we're younger, and it depends. Like I said, I think men bottle it up, and girls have a whole bunch of girlfriends and tissue, so they can deal with it, right?
Not
And
anymore, but yeah, our
no,
generation.
but I think internally, like Michelle and I were saying, like if you have to, like if you want to be better, if you want to, like, no matter what life throws at you, illness, relationship, financial, the world, whatever, right? In the midst of chaotic life, which is this is what it is in the world, you want to find something bad, there's something bad happening, right? But it's
Exactly.
your mindset. I talk about movies. A couple more things I'll say. Movies, we'll finish around 5. We're pretty good time,
Yeah,
nine
no,
minutes
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So there's a movie that I've mentioned a few times before. I mentioned movies lots. I've been good for, well, no, I said movie last week. There's a movie, I don't know if it's 20 years old, but it's called Life is Beautiful. And it's this Italian actor, Benito, I can't say his last name, but in this movie, it won awards and all that. In this movie, he's in a concentration camp, and he's with his son. I can't remember how it starts, but basically what he does with his son is he doesn't want his son to see the brutality of concentration camp. So he says, we play a game, it's hide and seek, but you have to hide. And if you hide, you get this. He was trying to hide them from the Germans so they wouldn't separate them, whatever, right? So
Right.
that's kind of the gist of the movie, right? So this idea of perception, I think of Terry Fox. I think of inspirational things, right? So like piggyback. First of all, you want to help remind yourself that you can do it. There's a lot of heroes out there that are way more unfortunate than me and you, right? But
Yeah.
we mentioned journaling your thoughts and emotion. Quit your inner critic when you see that. Little story about my daughter. It's an inner thing, but it's kind of funny. She can shoot me. Is when we'd go for a trip, Michelle, go for a drive,
Mhm.
right? Hey, if the kids came, if you gotta go to the bathroom, go now, right?
Yeah.
Get in the car, you're on the highway, you're traveling, there's no bathrooms, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, I gotta go to the bathroom. She was like, I don't know, 4.
Yeah.
And I would tell her, I'd be driving, but I'd kind of half look in the back, still driving safe. And I'd say, Emily, you tell your peepee who's the boss. And she would sit there and I could see through and she goes, peepee, I'm the boss. And so this like I love remembering these little things because it reminds ourselves I'm not going to let situations mess me up. Till the day I die, I'm going to be thankful and appreciative. Stop playing the crappy tapes, burn the tapes, and practice kindness to yourself. You'll see a few people pop in. No, it's okay. Finish, Michelle. Keep going. I'm just going to mute me.
Oh, okay, great. Okay. So I don't know what you want me to fit. Well, I got a great quote. So
Do your quote,
I'm
and
gonna
you can say
share
your
it in
goodbye.
the chat as well. It's to forgive is to set a prisoner free and discover that the prisoner was always you. That's the best quote ever. So, everybody, thank you so much for coming today. And we do appreciate you. We'll be back next week and we'll forgive you if you didn't come to our live and you're going to watch the replay. Also, a couple friendly reminders. One, like and subscribe, please. We really want to boost our viewership for the YouTube page. So, we appreciate that. If you want to submit any topics, or if you have any questions or comments, you can reach us at mental wellness for life at google.com. If you'd like to have a copy of our updated April self-care calendar, I've got those sent out, but send us an email there. We'll send those out as well. We've also been talking about collaborating on a newsletter. If you're interested in that, let us know. We're going to sort of wait till we have some interest because those are a lot of work to put in. Like we started sort of some ideas, but I'd like to know some people are interested before we actually start really working on that. And just know that we appreciate you and you're able and capable of all your dreams coming true. And we know that, so you should know that as well. So, really think about our topic this week. Think about self forgiveness, forgiving others, and just letting that stuff go, right? There's things that you might hold on that create tension and inflammation, and it all trickles through. So, just take some time, accept yourself for where you're at right now. You're doing the best you can. Tomorrow is a brand new day. Tom, anything else from you?
Nope. We'll see you next Sunday, everybody.
All right. See you next week, everybody. Thanks for putting up with Tom. I know
Okay.
how he
Bye.
is. We'll
Bye.
figure him out one of these days.
Bye.
All
We're
right.
good.
We are good.